crosswind Mercy, the night Lynn Canal, stood up and walked. The klaxon went off. The bow thruster hiccuped. And a voice on air guard 1 I didn't know yet said my name like a harbor light. River, do not try Eldred Rock. Bring them to the End City float. We'll take your patient from the car deck now. I am River Martinez, 29, deckhand on the Alaska Marine Highway ferry that runs the Lynn Canal Triangle, Juneau-Winskagway. My office is a steel deck that smells like diesel, coffee, and the ocean's last decision. My job is lines, dogs, vehicles, safety briefings, and turning strangers into passengers who feel like the boat belongs to them for the length of a tide. If you've never stood on the car deck at 0100 with winter spray hitting the ramps sideways, I can't explain to you what alive means. I grew up in Douglas, across the bridge from Juneau. I learned knots before multiplication and grief during a small-town winter nobody wanted to speak about again. I sleep in a tiny cabin and keep ginger chews in my pocket for tourists who discover motion the hard way. The night this happened, my boat, the MV Chilkat, caught the wrong kind of weather at the wrong angle of tide. Forecast said 30-knot northerlies, but Lynn Canal did what Lynn Canal does, made the forecast blush. The Carroll Buoy north of Walk Bay showed 42 gusting, 52, and the Katabatic out of Chilkat Pass turned the water into corrugations the color of a bruise. Our captain, Ms. Kenai, wears calm like a helm watch cap. When she turns the wheelhouse music down, you feel it in your bones. She turned it down at 1847. The bow thruster our friend for tight docking at Stoddard and then behaved like a teenager. The Eldred Rock Lighthouse blinked its rhythm out there like a heartbeat. We carried 54 souls, 21 vehicles, and one problem that would shape the hour, cabin 204. A 4-month-old named Benji with a breathing rattle, fever hot as a grudge, and parents white-knuckled around the handrail. We were told N Clinic can call a medevac, the dad said, voice steady, because he refused the alternative. We just need to get there. I nodded and said we would, because the sea will listen to you if you make your sentences short. But the truly shocking part hadn't happened yet. We cleared Auk Bay Pier, took the first set of lumps like an apology, and found our rhythm. Bow up, slap, roll, hold. I did my rounds, lash straps checked, chocks tight, dogs winked at, quiet cars respected. On the port side, the N-Jeep Club guys pretended to be fine and failed convincingly. On starboard, 2 tourists asked if the lighthouse was haunted. I said yes because we were all busy. At 1922, the captain called down river, we're going to hold west of Ralston and I don't like the set on Eldred. Alert the car deck for a possible turn. Translated, I might give you 10 extra minutes of your life if I don't make a bad call now. I grabbed the PA mic and did the voice I use when I need anxious men to listen. Car deck, this is River. We're holding for sea room. Check your brakes. Do not start engines. If you're feeling queasy, eyes on the horizon, or come to the aft lounge where the boat moves less, then the klaxon sounded, a sharp triple we use for medical, cabin 204. I sprinted, knocked, entered. Baby Benji looked like a small, furious tomato. His mom's hands shook with the control of a saint. I radioed Wheelhouse 204, Pediatric Respiratory Distress, Request 02, Pez Mask, and ETA 2N. The second I let up the key, a different voice came into my world. Chilkat Dawn. This is Glacier AirMed Caleb North, on Air Guard. We're overhead Sawmill Creek staging with N Clinic. Do not attempt Eldred in this set. Bring your patient to the city. Floatwe can do a hot load from your car deck with Harbor Police. I can be over the breakwater in 7. I didn't know. I knew his name until I heard it. Caleb. He sounded like a person who didn't fight the wind. He negotiated. Copy, Glacier Air, I said, kneeling to look at Benji again, because you never get to talk about a baby without looking at him. We can make city float if we can thread the lie. Our bow thruster is sulking. Understood, he said. I'll keep you honest on seas and gusts. When you dock, we can land on the parking spit. Harbor Police, already clearing it. Riverive, got you. He said my name like a harbor light. Less romance, more geometry. And somehow that made it hit harder. Rehook, I thought the decision was the hard part. But the canal had saved a second lesson, for when steel met wind. Captain Kenai committed. We took the dogleg behind the end breakwater with engines, swallowing their vowels and the wheelhouse windows turning into spray sculptures. The bow thruster held a grudge, then did its job. We came evil close to the float, and then we were on it. Lines out, cleats creaking like old men with good gossip. I had harbor police on my left, city EMTs on my right, and in my ear, calm as a metronome. Caleb, counting down his turn over the jetty, glacier air turning final, he said, "Wind 32, gusts 43. Harbor, you have traffic on the road? Negative. Hot load approved." "Copy," said the harbor sergeant, voice of someone who's loved this place long enough to argue with it convincingly. "We'll keep the spit hours." We moved Benji to the car deck because helicopter downwash and stairs don't play nice. I taped T-markers on the painted lane lines, as if a little theater could keep chaos polite. His mom climbed into the van that carried his small world. His dad tried to be brave in a way that made my ribs ache. Caleb's A-star came over the breakwater like a decision. White, blue stripe, landing light, making the night choose a side. The rotor wash turned spray to rain. The medic dropped to the deck, and Benji stopped crying for 3 seconds that felt like a test. "River," Caleb said in my headset, patched by some kind of grace through Harbor's handheld. "I have the landing light on the spit, but I don't like the crosswind. I can do a set down if you can get me cones at 30 feet. "Cones I have," I said, and ran like a person who moves better when told how than why. We built a landing box that looked like a kindergarten. Teacher with anxiety had done the math. The medic Jazz was already inside the van with the baby, doing the kind of murmured algebra medics do that makes rooms listen. Caleb floated his A-star, kissed the spit, and set his skids down with the kind of light touch that makes you wonder what else he does gently. He jogged to the van in helmet and float coat, visor up, jaw set, a small smile like a bargain with God. "Let me see our guy," he said to Jazz, and his hands were exact without hurry. He looked at me like I was part of the math. "River, he's borderline hypoxic, but stable. We'll load him in, too. You have a route to the door without cords or hooks." "I do," I said, and showed him with my body, because sometimes that's the language men trust fastest. Wait. Don't miss this detail. We did the hot load in a thin rain that wanted to be snow. Jazz kept oxygen true, Mom kept her voice true, Dad kept standing, and Caleb kept gravity honest. The harbor police sergeant kept a hand out like he could stop wind if it tried something. When the door closed, the A-star lifted with Benji in its small belly, and N gave up the patient it had borrowed from Juno for a minute. I stood there for one beat that people might call prayer if they liked different words than I do, and then Harbor said, "River, we've got coastals calling about vehicles stacked to the boat launch. Hydro is pushing water into the basin. We're going to need your car deck as a staging zone for shelter transport. Can you keep the ramp down another 20? I looked at Captain Kenai. She nodded, like women who run boats nod. "We're your hotel lobby," I told Harbor. "Send them?" I thought the helicopter solved our night, but the canal insists every yes earns 2 more questions. They came like weather, families with coolers, a man with a guitar, a woman carrying a cat that had an opinion about rotors. We turned the car deck into a commons, blankets, chairs, water. I asked the Jeep guys to be ushers. They were honored to be deputized into house. Tourists asked if they could help, and I gave them jobs because help needs verbs to become real. I set a rope line right where the downwash would misbehave and let the harbor keep order at the edge. Then my radio did that, quiet it. Does right before the part of the story you remember later, Chilcat Dawn. "Glacier air?" Jazz says Benji is holding. "We're 10 to Juno. But I have a second patient for you. Harbor. Just called a fisherman with a hand injury at the small boat. Harbor, he's bleeding and stubborn. I can't land twice with this gust, and clinic is maxed. Can you ferry him the 100 yards to your ramp so EMT can meet him on your deck? Bring me stubborn," I said, because I like problems that speak my first language. We did a tiny dance. Harbor put the fisherman in a skiff. I met them with a net and a bad idea that worked. EMT took the hand, and Stubborn thanked me by calling me kid in a tone that meant brother. I got back to the car deck in time to hear a different sound, the wind shifting its vowel. The gusts went sharp instead of round. The breakwater threw spray like a parade he didn't ask for. The A-star came back. I didn't expect that. It hovered high Caleb, holding at 200 like a hawk. "River," he said, "I have a warning light for Pito heat. It'll be fine." But Harbor asked for a second recon of the breakwater. They think the basin is taking overtopping near the city float. I'm going to mark a hotspot with searchlight for their crew. After that, he hesitated like a man redoing math fast. After that, I'll set down by your ramp for 30 seconds. I want to look you in the face when I say goodnight. You can fall a little in love with a sentence like that. I pretended to not immediately. Bring it, I said. We'll keep the rope line honest. He marked the overtop a white square of angry water near the corner, and then came in a hover that made the rope lift like it wanted to wave. He set on the spit again, blades turning the world into a documentary, and stepped the two to the rope where we stood in rotor wash that made us both younger and stupider for 5 seconds we probably shouldn't have taken, and he put his gloved hand on my bare wrist, rested it, not claimed like a person checking a pulse that belonged to both of us. You okay? He asked not, are you fine? But the question that names presence. I keep being, I said, and his mouth did a thing I wanted to see a few more times. He nodded. Me too, he said. Then he lifted, turned, and the light on his tail wrote a line across the harbor that felt like a promise. Cliffhanger. The harbor sergeant yelled over top. From the corner, a wave slapped over the float, and a kid's ball rolled toward the edge just slow enough to make everyone notice at once. I grabbed it. It's not heroism. It's muscle memory from a childhood that taught me water likes round things. The kid thanked me with a face like physics got personal. Harbor threw sandbags like mallets, the breakwater kept most of its dignity, and the basin understood the social contract again. The car deck breathed out in one large human noise that might have been a cheer. If we'd had more energy to label things, we sailed 30 minutes later. Ramp up lines home, and behind us, remembering our footprints. The Jeep guys fell asleep in advertising poses. The tourists finally believed me about Ginger. The fisherman texted me a picture of his stitches like we were cousins. The captain put music back on Fent Willie Nelson from the wheelhouse, like a compromise with the wind. I thought the story ended at the dock, but the canal likes proofs, and the night had one left with our names on it. Juneau looked like a postcard that had learned electrical engineering. We tied up to Auk Bay, and I started my after rounds. Trash, lost and found, dogs returned to their people, sleepers gently woken. My phone buzzed with a new number, and one word, here. It didn't say Caleb, but of course it did. I stood under the aft ramp where the wind can't be bothered to reach and typed back me too without thinking, because some rituals arrive all made. I went home to Douglas at 2:10. Found my little apartment above the salmon shop still smelled like lemon oil and lonely, and slept until my body refused more. My mother texted at 8:17. Miho, I saw a helicopter on the news. Don't be dumb. I sent heart and coffee emojis, which in our family count as a thesis. At 10:02, at Ann Harborick posted a storm recap over top at the corner. Harbor Police helping bus folks to the school gym, Glacier Air Coordination, and a thank you to crew of the Chilkat Dawn for turning a car deck into a living room. The last slide was a still taken from a dock, CCTV grainy, honest, slightly angled. Two small figures stand at the rope line by the ramp, one in a float coat with a helmet, one in a deck jacket with a knit cap foreheads, inclined for one beat under rotor wash, like they are listening to the same song. The caption read, small, honest, enough. I stared at it until the coffee gave up trying to be helpful. Then my phone buzzed again. Caleb, dinner. Me, always. Caleb, good because I am. We ate halibut tacos at a place in Auk Bay that understands shore leave. He told me about mountain waves, icing, pitot heat. The one time a goose thought his rotor disc was a dating app, and the rule he writes inside his helmet, don't land where you don't want to take off from. I told him about cleats, catheads, hosepipes, and how rope makes more sense than most people if you treat it like a story. We didn't make a schedule. We made a rule. When the Carol buoy gets loud, we text here. When the air guard gets chatty, we text me. He keeps a spare ear gel for his helmet in my jacket pocket. I keep a Sharpie in his flight bag because love, like aviation and ferries, is part logistics. Sometimes the safest place isn't to lie behind a breakwater or the familiar weight of a mooring line. Sometimes it's the inch between two foreheads at the edge of a ramp, while a rotor asks the sea to be polite. Sometimes it's a voice on air guard that says your name like a harbor light. I'm here, I tell him when the wind forgets the word gentle. Me too, he says, and Lynn Canal, stubborn and silver and older than our maps, lets us try again.